Hi, and welcome to the BA Knowledge Share. In this episode, we will cover essentially a continuation of the sports dashboard, and that's reflective of the earnings of the top earners from 1990 on to 2020. So, without further ado, let's sort of build out the next steps in terms of building out the dashboard. So far, just to sort of recap, we built the requirements for what we want to see, we built the data. In the previous episode, we built out the pivot table. So our next step would be to continue this process of building the dashboard. We'd also laid out a structure and a foundation of how the dashboard components should be and where should they be placed. So that being said, without further ado, let's get started. So our first requirement was to build a dashboard of the top earners in millions over the past years. And that's what we have created over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to build out a chart in order to reflect some bar chart. So in this, all right. So then, what an easier way to get to the chart would be to insert, and then you would click on the bar chart over here, and then do a 2D column. All right. So now that we have this chart over here, what I want to do is bring that chart or that graph into this dashboard. And what I want to do is modify this a little bit. So I want to delete the title. I'm going to hide this over here. I am going to hide this button as well. And I want to get rid of this as well, this legend. And in order to sort of work through the look and feel, I think having a blue chart would look good over here. It does give me the earnings of the top players, or the top earning players from 1990 to 2020. So what I want to do is to build a create titles. So I'm going to insert a text box over here and kind of create some headings. All right, so now that we have this in place, I want to format this box, and I'm going to go to the right hand side where it has format, and I want to increase the transparency because I want it to be the same color as that of the background over there. And I want to change the fonts, and the way to change the fonts would be to go on home and maybe increase it to 14, center this, bold it, and then let's bring in the top earners over here. Now this is a very simple dashboard just so that you can get started. One thing I want to do before bringing this in, let's go back to top earners, and I want to delete this area here, or these grid lines over here, okay? So it looks a lot more sharper, and let's see if we can make this transparent. So let's go back and actually let's put this over here. Let's copy this and put that in the dashboard. And once you get the hang of this, it will be a lot easier to sort of work through these. This is just the first instance of bringing the dashboard in. So we want to pull this down so it's just catching the right sort of length. And the one thing I want to do is to format it so that the background is, there is no fill, okay? So what that does, it blends into this gray sort of background. And what I also want to do is to see if I can bold these tabs or these labels. All right, so now we're done with our first um, pivot over here. Now what I want to do is go back to my requirements and see, I want a trend chart of all of the overall sports earnings. So in this case, what I want to do is click on this and then say insert, go over here, and I want to build a 2D line or trend line. And what I want to do is very similar to what we did before. I want to delete the headings, hide value buttons. Then I want to hide axis buttons, remove this, and then essentially copy this chart, and then move that to the dashboard area. Now, remember, it gets a lot easier now because you've already established and copied and pasted the top earners from the previous tab. What I want to do is now delete this grid line and make this transparent, very similar to what we did in the previous example. So over here, I want to go to Format, and I want to shape fill and put no fill over here. Bring this down. Okay, and then let's copy and paste this and label this to be trend of top earners, millions of dollars. Okay, and let's increase the size here so hopefully we can fit the entire label on one line. Okay, so now that we have that set up, what I don't like about this is it has a column border. So let's go back and fix that. So let's go here and let's go shape format and then text outline, and I want no outline. And then let's check to see if this will work on the other one. And it did not. That's okay. Moving on to the next one over here, let me go back to the README. And you want to go to understand the top earners by sport. So far we had just the general top earners. Then we did the trend chart of the overall earners. Now we want to do the top earners by sports. Same sort of method, insert. You want to create a 2D bar chart. And let's put this over here, delete, or rather hide the button, hide axis, delete this, remove the grid lines, remove the heading because we will have the heading as part of the dashboard. And what I do want to do is copy this, bring it over to the dashboard. Okay, and then very similar to what we did before, let's Control Z that. You got to be very careful about how you move things here because otherwise we'll just end up moving a lot of these items that move the inside of the chart. So let's make this background transparent. So I'm going to do this. So I'm going to say no fill. I will copy this from here and grab that over here. And then I'm going to say top earners, millions of dollars, top earners by sports. Okay, there you go. So I'm going to squeeze that in, bring that in. I might have to work with bringing this down a little bit or minimizing the chart, right? And bringing it down. All right. So now that we have the baseline, and actually let's do one down further so that there's no overlaps. All right, so now that we have this, let's look at our last sort of requirement. Our last requirement was top order by nationality. So let's sort of get away from building the bar graph, and let's introduce maybe a different chart over here. So let's do an insert, and let's try a pie chart. See how that looks. So if we do a pie chart, it does give us a breakdown by nationality and the percentages. So let's see what we can do. delete or rather hide this. Control Z, hide value field buttons, and then we could hide access. And what I want to do is delete the heading like we've done in the past and leave the legend here because it is color coded. I want people to be able to see that the biggest chunk is coming from, as an example, it would be Argentina. Or rather, I apologize, it would be USA. And the following ones subsequently, it'll plot it over here. So that's a good sort of legend to include in the chart and in the dashboard and keep that there. So now I want to copy and paste that in here and bring that in here. So let's go back. Let's do Control Z. Right. Let's make this transparent. So let's go here, actually get format, and in order to make this transparent, if you've been following along, we just say no fill and we leave it at that. But I think what's happened here is it's grabbing two different boxes. So let's try this again. So format, shape fill, and then no fill. And so now what that's doing is it's really blending with the background. And then we do the similar sort of exercise of copying and pasting and including this in here. So trend of top earners by nationality. In millions of dollars. Okay. So now that we have our basic chart set up, now what we want to do is add some slicers in here. And when we refer to slicers, it's basically the ability for a user to select data and based on a movement between different sort of filtering selections. So let's go back to the top earners data or the pivot table. And what I want to do is I'm going to put my mouse on one of the fields in this chart. It doesn't have to be all fields. It could be all, or it could be one single cell. But what I want to do is click on Insert Slicer, and you'll get an option over here in terms of the slicers. So Insert Slicers by, this is top earners, right? So it'll be by, let's do it by name, by nationality, and earnings. And let's see what pops up. So you'll get 3 slicers in here. And then what we want to do is actually the earnings don't really help me. So what I want to do is delete this. Okay, so I want to keep nationality and name intact. And what I also want to include as part of this is inserting a timeline. So a timeline basically is the ability to create a timeline, meaning it'll give you the dates and you can sort of work through filtering the charts through the dates. So let's go through the overall earnings and it's saying we can't create a timeline for the report because it doesn't have a formatted field formatted as date. All right, so let's see what we can do over here. All right, so I don't think we can create a timeline as part of this because it's asking for a field that is formatted as a date. So what we will do is we'll just use the name and the nationality to filter the dashboard. So what I want to do is take this one here and go back to the dashboard and paste it over here. And let's sort of get rid of the background because I want it to stand on its own. And then the other one that we want to bring in is the nationality. So once again, you copy that and then you paste it here and get rid of the background. Now, there's definitely ways to format the slicers. So you would, in the event of formatting the slicer, they come in built in with canned sort of formats that you can use. And so maybe that's a better option over here to use. Let's go to slicer and select this format and then go from there. Now there is a last step within the slicer in that if I click on this as an example, it only changes the data on one chart. So I want to clear that up. I want the ability for this name and nationality to interact with each other to impact the entire dashboard over here. So let me show you how to do that. So the way to do that would be to right click on this name slicer and click on report connections. What you want to do is you want to select the pivot tables that you want this slicer to be connected to. And I'm selecting all the pivot tables that we have in this worksheet. Similarly, you want to go back and do the same for the next slicer. Go back here, click OK. And let's go back to the dashboard. And what's happening now is that they both are sort of working with each other. So if I clear this filter and if I just click on, say for instance, France, okay, so I can only see France and it'll give me the names of folks that are French nationality. So let me clear this one here. Now let's go to the United States over here and see what pops up. So if I go to United States, it does give me a bunch of players that are nationals of the U.S. and it sort of dynamically updates the dashboard. So let's clear that up. So that being said, just to kind of conclude this video and this session, we went ahead and started off the exercise by figuring out the requirements that you want to see on the dashboard. Step 2 was building out the dashboard, meaning setting up the components, the structure that you'd like to see. We brought in the data. I did do some tweaking of the data before I did record this video. And I'll focus more on tweaking the data in our upcoming videos as well. But then the next piece of information is we created pivot tables to go over how to create the charts from those pivot tables and insert those in this dashboard. So I hope you get a chance to try something similar, and if you do find value in these videos, please consider subscribing to this channel as well as visiting our website, beknowledgeshare.com, as well as visiting our Facebook page. The link has been provided below. Until next time, see you there.